Hello, Zuko here. If you don't know, my name is Jess, but I go by Zimmy on the internet because one time I was 15. So, today we are going out with the old. We are doing a fresh start for 2021, and we are unhauling all of the books that I, for the most part, read in 2020 that I don't plan on rereading or didn't like. So, the books that I would like to either pass on to other people because they just weren't my favorites, or the books that I hated and just want the fuck off my shelves. Filming on hauls is always a very exciting time for me because I gather boxes and boxes and boxes of books throughout the year, and I tend to only film one unhaul a year. So these get to leave my house, and since we're going to be doing renovations to the house soon, maybe by the time this is posted, and we're redoing the floors, it's great to get four big old boxes of books out of my space and back into the world of circulation. So today we are unhauling 100 books, give or take. I think it's 92, but 100 sounds better. To start off, I am unhauling the entire Chaos Walking trilogy by Patrick Ness. So this is The Knife of Never Letting Go, The Ask and the Answer, and Monsters of Men. I read the first book and I didn't really like it, so I feel like there's no reason to keep the whole trilogy because I'm never going to reread it. I don't have any interest in finishing the trilogy, and yeah. Then I have the entire And I Darken trilogy by Kirsten White. So there is And I Darken, Now I Rise, and Bright We Burn. These are a female Vlad the Impaler retelling. I read the first one. I kind of liked it. Maybe I would revisit these in audiobooks, but I don't really feel like I'll ever reread it, and that somebody else would probably enjoy these more than I did because they were very romance focused and more historical fiction and less gory and interesting than I was expecting. They were more romance focused, and it's not what I signed up for with these. So they're going. Then there's The Lotteries +1 by Emma Donoghue, illustrated by Caroline Hadilaksono. Really bad at that one, I'm sorry. I did not like this book. I DNF'd it 50 pages in because I just kept misgendering one of the characters while it was trying really hard to be diverse, but couldn't gender a character correctly. So this is leaving. Then there's We Are the Wildcats by Siobhan Vivian. I read this last year. I won't reread it. The cover's beautiful, but I didn't really the author was involved in being a kind of rude ass person, and I don't feel like keeping this on my shelf, even though it's so pretty. Someone else will have a lot more joy out of this book than I will, especially because it's a pretty recent release, so finding it at the used bookstore will be great. Then there is Akata Witch and Akata Warrior, both by Nydia Okorafor. I read the first one, and I just wasn't intrigued enough to continue and read the sequel, so I'm going to pass these on to the local used bookstore and hope that somebody finds them and really loves them. And I am unhauling this Mismatched Cover trilogy by Nora Roberts. This is year 1, of Blood and Bone, and Rise of Magics. I am only unhauling these because I bought these as a collection from my local used bookstore, and then they got all 3 in hardback, so I bought those instead, and I don't need these anymore. Although I'm kind of tempted to read them through the paperbacks because I do prefer reading in paperback and owning hardcovers, so. Then there is Grace's Guide to the Art of Pretending to be a Grown-Up by Grace Helbig. I didn't really like this. This really felt its age and like it was being written for young people by a 30-year-old. So I don't think I'm ever going to reread it. Let's pass it on. Maybe someone who really loves Grace will find this and enjoy it. Then there is this copy of White Cat by Holly Black. This is the first book in the Curse Workers trilogy. I have it replaced right here. And this edition didn't match the other ones, and I liked those better, so I'm unhauling this. Then there is The Creeps, The Infernals, and The Gates, all by John Conley. These are a book series about a kid whose neighbors open a portal to hell. I was not a big fan. I ended up DNFing this one, even though it's a very pretty cover. So it's finally time for these to find a new home. Then there is The Sacrifice Box by Martin Stewart. This book has an unironic murderous teddy bear that goes on a rampage. I think that's enough said. Then I have When God Was a Rabbit by Sarah Winman. I have not read this, but it just wasn't making me super thrilled, the whole concept of it. I don't know, maybe I should keep this and try it, because I like the cover. If you've read this book, let me know down below. Should I keep it or should I get rid of it? Then I have my floppy paperback copy of A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I bought a hardback edition of this, so I no longer need this paperback copy. Then I have An Abundance of Catherines by John Green. This is probably my least favorite John Green book, and I don't need it. I've read it. It was a book. I don't need it anymore. I have Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. I tried to read this. I got like an hour or two into the audiobook and went, don't know what's happening, don't care. And that was kind of it. I don't know. Should I try to give this series another go? If you've read it, let me know down below. Then I have all of my Adam Silvera books. This is They Both Die at the End, Infinity Sun, and History Is All That You Left Me. I read this one. It was fine. I DNF'd this one. It was bad. And then I kind of went, I don't need to keep reading Adam Silvera's books and giving them low ratings when I know they're just not books for me. So I just didn't bother reading this one, and I'm going to unhaul it because there's no point in reading a book that you're not going to like. It's not objectively bad. This one might be. Then I have Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I read this. I was pretty bored. I'm unhauling this. We've gotten through one box. Whew, I'm sweating. Let's keep going. I am unhauling all 3 books in the Quarantine series by Lex Thomas. I read Quarantine the Loners. This is book 1. It is a like weird dystopian set in a quarantined off high school because anyone who is like older than 17 just like barfs up all their internal organs if they're around these kids who have this disease. It was meh. I am unhauling Almost Midnight, 2 Festive Short Stories by Rainbow Rowell, illustrated by Simini Blocker. I enjoyed this. I thought it was cute, but I don't think I'm ever going to reread it, so I'm passing it along. And I have Wonder by R.J. Palacio. This book was bad inspiration porn. I hated it. I don't know. Part of me wants to just like throw this book in a fire pit because I don't think people should be reading it. I won't. I'll pass it along, but that's why I'm getting rid of it because it's not a good book. It's also like, it's so inspiration porny and I hate it. Ugh. I have The Bone Gap by Laura Ruby. I read this recently and I couldn't tell you what the fuck happened in this book. I think that's a pretty good reason not to keep it. Then I have the Looking Glass Wars trilogy by Frank Bedore. This is The Looking Glass Wars, Arch Enemy, and Seeing Red. I don't know, maybe I should give this a better try, but I don't know. I listened to a little bit of it and the writing wasn't for me. So how do I hold this up? Oh my god. Then I have the entire Cirque du Freak series. These are all 12 books by Darren Shan. I read the first 2. I wasn't a big fan. I didn't want to sink 12 more books. I didn't want to read a 12-book series of books that I didn't really care for. They weren't even like fun enough to like just read anyway, and they weren't interesting enough to really keep a focus. So these will be going. Then I am unhauling both Emergency Contact and Permanent Record, both by Mary H.K. Choi. They're fine. They're kind of generic college-age YA straight romances. So don't really feel the need to keep those, even though they have really pretty covers. Okay, that's 2 boxes down. Let's keep going. Next, I have Pan's Labyrinth, The Labyrinth of the Faun by Guillermo del Toro and Cornelia Funke. I haven't seen the movie for this still, but I did read this. It was fine, but it wasn't really, I don't know, it didn't feel written in enough detail for me to feel connection to anything that was happening. So I'm unhauling this, even though it's very pretty. Like, I don't know, man. Look at that. Huh. Curse pretty books. Then I am unhauling Tales of the Peculiar, Hollow City, is it Library of Souls? Library of Souls, and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I read the first one when I was like 16 and it first came out and I liked it. And then I reread it this year, or I guess last year, and I didn't like it. And I kept reading them and I just wasn't enjoying myself anymore. So I'm unhauling them and I'm giving up on the series. Then I am unhauling The Hazelwood and The Night Country, both by Melissa Albert. These are a portal fantasy, but the portal fantasy doesn't start until like 70% into this book. They just weren't what I want out of a portal fantasy. The covers, again, are really pretty. At least I think this cover's really pretty. This one I could do without, but that's fine. But yeah, Didn't really like these. Oh, okay, then I also have Conference of Birds and Map of Days, which are part of the second trilogy of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I have not read these, but I am unhauling them because I'm pretty sure I still don't care. Then I have Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I have learned I don't like novels set in verse. I don't think her stories are for me. I'm not a big contemporary fan either, so this is leaving. Then I have The School for Good and Evil, book 1 and 2. I didn't like this. I read the first one. It was not for me, and I'm not continuing on. Then I have Scrappy Little Nobody by Anna Kendrick. I don't love Anna Kendrick enough to believe I'm ever going to reread this, so yeah. Then there's Slasher Girls and Monster Boys, the stories selected by April Genevieve Tucholke. I only really care about one story in this book. That's not a reason to keep an entire book on my shelf, but there really was like only one story in here that I like still can remember and stands out to me, so don't need it. Then I have 9 by Zach Hines. I'm unhauling this because I accidentally bought 2 copies and I haven't even read it, so like I have to read it soon because I wanted it enough to buy it twice. Then I have Dear Evan Hansen, the novel by Val Emick with Stephen Levinson and Benj Pask and Justin Paul, creators of the hit show. This is a novelization of the musical Dear Evan Hansen. This was fine. I enjoyed it enough, but I know I'm never going to reread it. I'm not a contemporary fan, so. Then I'm unhauling a copy of Breaking Dawn. I believe I am unhauling this because I bought a deluxe edition of this book. So I am sending this back to the used bookstore where it came from. Then I have Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Enough said. Then I have All the Crooked Saints, Scorpio Races, and Shiver, all by Maggie Stiefvater. I read these 2. I didn't really care for them, which led me to believe I probably won't care about this either. Maybe I'll listen to it one day. They're not exactly hard books to find copies of if I ever decide to rebuy it, but I kind of doubt I will, so. Then I have Shade's Children by Garth Nix. I read this, but I think I fell asleep during like an hour of it because I was listening to the audiobook, and I didn't care enough to continue or like scroll back or anything, so I think that kind of tells you how I felt about this book. Then I have Roald Dahl's The Complete Adventures of Charlie and Mr. Willy Wonka. I'm only unhauling this because this has the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or is it Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? I don't know. It's got both books, Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I didn't like the sequel, so. Then I have The Blackthorn Key by Kevin Sands. This was a fun middle grade book, but I don't think I'd ever reread it. Maybe if my library got the audiobooks in for the sequels, I'd listen, but I don't think I need this on my shelf. Then I have We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. I have not, ooh, I'm dropping it. I haven't read this. I don't think I'm ever going to. And maybe if I had it in audiobook, maybe. Then I have Winterglass by Lexa Hillier. I don't know why I bought this. I think I bought it accidentally, so I'm just gonna quietly unhaul it. Then I have Hilda and the Hidden People, illustrated by Luke Pearson, written by Stephen Davies. I don't need this. This is like a little middle grade-y kiddo book. So I should pass this on to a kiddo. Okay, last box. Can you progressively see my face getting redder and redder as I like sweat to death in this giant sweater? The heat is turned off and I'm still like melting. I am unhauling my single copy of the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin because I have the whole trilogy in a box set now. I think I've said this before, but I'm unhauling The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. I read like 70 pages of this and it wasn't for me, so yeah. Grasshopper Jungle by Andrew Smith. I read this, I fully hated it. 1 star. I want to also throw this in a fire. I won't, but no. Forgive Me Leonard Peacock by Matthew Quick. I read it. I don't think I'm going to reread it. I don't know if you need this explanation every time, but in case you do, that's why. Salt Slows is a bind-up of short stories by Julia Armfield. I liked it well enough, but I'm not a big fan of short stories, so I'm not keeping it. Invisible Monsters by Chuck Palahniuk. Still has my bookmark in it from when I was physically reading it, but I will be unhauling this. I read the audiobook. It was fine, but I don't need it. Basic Witches by Jaya Saxena and Jess Zimmerman, and Witch's Book of Self-Care by Erin Murphy Hiscock. I just will never read these, I'm gonna be honest. So, like, hopefully someone else will. Even though this one's really pretty and I kind of want it. They're both kind of pretty and I kind of want them, but I don't think I need them. I think they're just unnecessary clutter in my life. Wicked Will Rise and Yellow Brick War, both by Danielle Page. I read part of Dorothy Must Die and it was god-awful, so I will not be continuing on with the series. I don't need these. Genius by Leopoldo Gout. I don't even really know what this is about, but this is one of the rare books where I didn't read it. I have no interest in reading it, so I am unhauling it. I try not to do that now because I have purged so much of the books that I bought as a teenager that at this point what's left I feel like I have to actually read now. But as pretty as this cover is, I don't know that I'm ever going to read it. Maybe I should. This one's on a maybe list. Internment by Samira Ahmed. Didn't really love this, unhauling it. Play by Brittany Morris, I did like, but I don't think I'm ever going to reread it, so I would like to pass it along to someone else who can really enjoy it. The Bells by Danielle Clayton. I kind of want to reread this again, but if I do, it'll be through audio. This is such a, like, potato chip of a book where there's no real nutritional value, but you just, like, keep going in. Near Witch by V.E. Schwab, unhauling it because I read it and I hated it. The 11th Plague by Jeff Hirsch. Read it, didn't like it. Crusher by Niall Leonard. Read it, didn't like it. So yeah, I think those are all of the books for the most part that I read and didn't think I'd keep or continue on with in 2020 that I'm now unhauling to have a fresh start in 2021. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you whenever I do my next video.